Hey all, welcome back to another episode of Tea Time the podcast. And on this episode, I am joined by Abigail Johnson. Abigail Johnson is a National Open Scholarship winner, Princeton University graduate, experienced professional economist and research analyst. She has over 10 years' experience as a private tutor in both mathematics and English at the primary and secondary level. Since 2018, she has been specializing in SAT prep and she has begun admissions consulting in 2019 and is also personally experienced by her own successful admission cycle. In a nutshell, let's just say Abigail is a pretty phenomenal woman. And without any further delay, let's dive into today's episode. I love that you have a mug. So, so Abigail, tell me what is in your cup.
So what is in my cup, I think, is actually super reflective of who I am as an individual. It's home brewed drip coffee. I bought the coffee from a small business that roasts coffee. It's called Fits Perfect. They, so this is a really nice blend. It's got Ethiopian, Kenyan coffee. It's really lovely.
But that's good. That's good.
So yeah, my coffee is fresh, fresh, fresh. So
All
yeah.
right, cool. All right. So I'm gonna allow you to introduce yourself.
So my name is Abigail Johnson. I am managing director of Kiskity Consulting Limited, which is my company that I founded. I am a sister. I am a daughter. I am a friend. I am somebody who works with teenagers, who works with parents and families to help them get find, identify, and achieve their tertiary educational goals. So that's like my main thing with my business. Um, I am a open scholarship winner. Professionally, I worked as an economist. I also worked as an analyst and research assistant. But I have decided to take a break from my professional career to really focus on my business at this time.
you have quite a rich portfolio. So let's get into a bit of your backstory. Like, take us back to the beginning. Give us a background of like your path to starting this business and what inspired you to start it. Of
So
course, we work together, so I know on your about page, you mentioned tutoring from young and that your mom was your biggest inspiration.
absolutely. So, in fact, my mom is my biggest inspiration, of course, because she has been teaching my entire life. In fact, she's teaching before I was even born. But I was born into a family of teachers. There's so many people on both sides of my family who are in the educational industry, whether at the primary, secondary, or tertiary education. So, the first person who would have birthed my love for education is my late grandmother. She was a
Mhm.
teacher in Jamaica, and when we were kids, myself, my brother, and my cousin, she got us a school desk, and we would do our homework together in afternoons. And education has always been a central part of my life, literally since I know myself. Being Black middle class people in the Caribbean, one of the major messages that we get is that education is your way forward. Education is how you're going to be able to get ahead. Um,
Mhm.
for me, pursuing the highest level of education was not really optional. It was just something I saw as my ultimate goal.
Right.
Um, so so I was born in Jamaica. I grew up in Jamaica until I was about 9 years old, and I came to Trinidad. So within
You see,
a
I
year,
didn't even know that. I know you
I,
had Jamaican roots. I know I knew that much, but I didn't know you were like born there. So
Jamaican,
interesting.
so I'm Trinidadian by descent. So I've lived in Trinidad pretty much since 2002. And within a year and a half of me moving to Trinidad, I took SEA. I passed my first choice. Now, we'll talk about first choice and SEA another day because I have some views on that. But I would have gone into St. Joseph's Convent in Port of Spain, where I would have stayed for 7 years. I studied the sciences actually when I was there. So I studied and I got an open scholarship, the sciences in 2011.
All right.
I took a gap year, and during my gap years when I think my teaching journey started because I actually homeschooled a family friend. They had a 6-year-old daughter, so I homeschooled her for a year. So not only did I have to work one-on-one and close with a young child, but I also had to, make sure that she was learning, she was engaging. This was a year she was learning to read. So it was a really critical year. And I think, and even alongside that, this is where, of course, my mom comes in. My mom has been teaching, as I said, since I was born. And she's at the time in 2011, and prior to that, she was doing private tutoring because my mom works primarily with remedial students. And she would have been also doing volunteering. So at the time, she was volunteering for a state home to do teaching for English. And I always had a thing for math. So here was I at 18, going on 19 years old, teaching boys at a state home. And, it was definitely an experience. I value it. I'm glad I had that experience. And I think nothing bad happened. It was actually like very uneventful. And one thing my mom said was that the persons at the home who were working there were saying that they were really surprised of how I was able to handle myself at that age and not really be intimidated. So I think from then I knew that one of my most defining characteristics is that I'm fearless, like quite literally fearless. Um, from then I would have
Yeah.
applied to go to, because with an open scholarship in hand, for those who don't know, an open scholarship is an award from the government of Trinidad and Tobago based on your CAPE results, and
Right.
it allows you to go to any university in the world fully paid for. So here was I with basically a golden ticket, and I said, well, if I have an open, I'm only going to apply to like the best schools because I want to use it for the best possible opportunities. Um,
Mhm.
and I applied on my own, and it was quite a stressful experience, not just for myself, but for my family, because it is a very intensive and involved process. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that are unclear about the process. And that, even especially as an international student, that you're not really sure how to navigate it. Luckily for me, I was successful and I was admitted to Princeton University, which is one of these schools I was admitted to because I was admitted to a couple other great schools, and I decided to matriculate at Princeton. I initially was in doing engineering.
Yeah.
And this is another major trait of mine. I know when to quit. I know when to walk out. So I was doing engineering. It was not going well. I wasn't enjoying the subject. I was struggling academically, and I was just feeling like a fish out of water. And one of the nice things about American education is they allow you to kind of try different things. And so if you have 4 courses, 2 out of the 4 could be kind of whatever you want. And I always wanted to know about economics. I took 2 economics courses. I said, hey, I like this. And as they say, the rest was history. So I switched across to econ and I completed my degree in 4 years, no additional time. And yeah, so I graduated with a degree in economics and with a minor in political economy. So now, the other part of the open scholarship, which is the part a lot of people find challenging, is
Mhm.
that you have to, in exchange, work in Trinidad and Tobago, preferably for the government or government-related industry for 5 years. So 5 years for a lot of people, myself included, felt like forever. And it's funny because I finished my service 2 years ago, and yeah, that's one of the things. I finished my service. So I started off in the Ministry of Trade. I did 1 year there, and then I would have worked as a research assistant, and then I would have gone back to the Ministry of Trade. Now, all kicks aside, none of those jobs were particularly high paying jobs. And I really I like nice things. I like to travel. I like to take care of myself. I like to look good. So I said, you know what? Once I came back to Trinidad, I restarted tutoring because, as I said, my mom specialized in English, and a lot of her parents were asking, well, what about math? And I was working again with younger students, ages from primary up to secondary. And my mom focuses and specializes in remedial. So it was often me working with students who had difficulties and who were struggling in school and didn't really believe in themselves. And I think one of the cornerstones of my practice is that I always come from a place of compassion for all of my clients, regardless of where they are, where they come from. I always understand that my personal academic journey where I happen to excel is not everybody's story. And
Right.
I've really learned to appreciate that everybody has a story, and everybody, regardless of how they perform academically is inherently valuable and inherently worthy. And it's something that, as I said, is a cornerstone of my practice. So I hope that was helpful.
No, that was really comprehensive. Um, you touched on a lot of things there that I plan to circle back to. But it's really uncovering like why you started this business. So it
Mm-hmm.
is in your blood, it's part of your family's legacy, teaching, education is very big in your family.
Yes.
But tell us more about you linking that tutoring or consulting, especially the admissions part, like what made you make that official and decided like this is my niche and this is why I want to do this?
Between 2016 and 2018, I was pretty much just doing general tutoring, whatever came my way. And
Mm-hmm.
then a friend of mine at the time said, well, why don't you get into SATs? Because SATs is a niche market. And I said, well, why not? Let me try SATs. And I can
Yeah.
tell you, scary, because unlike our exams where the cycle is 9 months, you have a whole year to prepare the student, you have lots of time to prepare information. SATs is like multiple times a year and the results come out in 2 weeks. So you have a short cycle of preparation and quick feedback. So it is a very high pressure industry. But I like that because, fun fact, which I'm sure we will get into, I have ADHD and I am also autistic, which is something I've been diagnosed with by a professional. So has been a big part of my journey as well. But these short cycles and new students, fresh work all the time was really amazing to me. And SATs, of course, is an exam that's only used for the purpose of going to higher education. So what happened is that clients started asking me, well, do you do admissions? And I went, well, I don't know, maybe
And then
because
you have
again,
the background and the experience.
yeah, I did. I had my own experience, right? And the thing about it is that the admissions consulting industry is really it's one of those industries that there's no like clear path as to how you get into it. I mean, now that I'm in it, I've done a lot more research, I've formalized how I do it, and there are actually, and I'm considering pursuing, there are formal like accreditations you can get, although it's not required necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I really got into it because my students were asking for help, and I said, you know what? Why not? Now, the thing is, I couldn't get into it with the career I had at the time because, as I mentioned before, I had a full-time job working as an economist and it was very demanding. I'd be working late a lot of times. I mean, a lot of the early days, I would literally come straight home and go straight into a class. So it would literally be back to back, you know? So I really didn't, I think I had like one or two clients at the time for SATs. I mean, for SATs that I moved over to being admissions consulting. And what happened is my students told me that my help had made such a massive difference to them. And I was like, really? And they told me that, well, one, I heard from a student directly, and one I heard from a student's parents. And the student directly told me that, she said, without your help, I would not have applied to schools I would have applied to. I would not have understood the value that I brought to these institutions, and I would not have, you know, not advertised, but put myself forward in such a way as to be as appealing as I was. And this student received many scholarships. And I remember when she started sending me across all these acceptance letters, I just felt like all this joy, like it was
Oh,
my cycle going all over again. And
right.
she's doing absolutely wonderfully. I think she's a little cool actually. I think she's in her junior or senior year right now. I know that might seem bad that I forgot, but
Oh
it's
no.
I have to
It's a
remember
lot
this.
to probably keep track of everyone and where they are in their journey.
And this was right before the pandemic, and everybody knows before the pandemic versus after. Nobody remembers.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
So what ended up happening, because it kind of does cross over a bit, so I'll get into it, is that I was coming to the end of my service, and I didn't really know what my next step forward was. So my service ended in 2021. And I said, you know what? I'm going to really get into this admissions and SATs full time. And and I had
So would
one.
you say that getting that type of feedback and seeing the impact that you were making in kids' lives is where that light bulb moment went off for you? Like, oh, I could really make this something official.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact is there are people doing it locally, but it's not like widespread or well known. And most of these people that do it locally already kind of have their own niche and their own market. And there were a lot of people who were unserved. So that's also a big reason. It was not that, this was already a saturated market. And I think as well, I had a really personal touch to add to it because many of the people who are already in the industry are close to my mom's age. And there's nothing wrong with that. But,
You
me
bring
being
that
young,
unique perspective being a young person yourself.
and also having not just being a young person, but being a young person who recently navigated life after university, who knows what happens next. Because a
Yeah,
lot of the time we kind of prepare students with university and then that's where it ends. And then you're like, but what happens next? So one of the things
right.
that's unique about my practice is I'm very much focused on students not just thinking the finish line is your admissions, but it's really that's the start line. And telling my students how to navigate, you know, the process once you get to college, things to look out for, like make sure you sign up for your classes, make sure that, you get in with a good group of people to help study and really focus, things that a lot of that I felt like I just didn't know at the time. I had to learn a lot of lessons the hard way. So I think that's also a part of what influences me or what's inspired me is that I want to help students navigate the world of today because oftentimes the advice our parents give us, while well meaning, is for a world that just simply does not exist anymore. You
Oh,
know,
all right. So your business, and well, more specifically, you believes every child deserves the opportunity to access expansive opportunities for growth. This is on your website and on your company's LinkedIn. And I
yes.
believe we came up with that in our strategy session. But tell us more about this belief and what does this manifest or look like in a real world sense?
So this is where I tell a story that I really hold dear to me, and this is also a big reason why a big part of my inspiration as to the future direction I see for my business. And I say future direction because I'm still working on it. It's still a work in progress. So let's go to right before the pandemic. I had one student thus far who was sponsored by this sports club that he was playing for. And the more I worked with this young man, at first when we started, I was just SATs I was working with him on at the time. From the beginning, and even with my SATs clients, I tried to get to know my students. You know, this student went from being so at the SATs. He was going in for an athletic scholarship. So really the school was just looking for a pass mark, as we would say locally. And by the time we were preparing for the SATs, by the time we were right on top of the exam, he was doing really well. And I remember sharing with his coach, who I'm still in contact with up to today, that he is much more clever and much more like he's really intelligent. Even like he was working, he was doing so well, his scores were looking so good. And it just so happened he was preparing for the March 2020 exam.
Oh,
And on the Thursday, we found out all schools were closed and the exams were postponed. Fast forward to August, which is when everything would have started opening back up. And unfortunately, based on his personal situation, he was just no longer in that mind space and that mental space. And he took the exam in August. And again, I think one more time, I can't remember because it's multiple times in the cycle. And both times, he didn't give me the results I knew he was capable of. And this guy was really talented. And he came from a specific area in Trinidad. I'm not going to call the name of the place because they already get a lot of flack. But what happened was that his older brother was killed in gun violence, and he decided to avenge his brother, and he's currently in jail.
oh my gosh.
And it's funny how I found out because I found out from a parent of a student who was in the same sports club. I'm really making sure not to use details because I don't want the student to be identified.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, And I remember when I found out, I'm on the phone with a parent, the client, and I just started bawling. I started crying because this was a young man I had sat next to and worked with. Because at the time, everybody was working in person and everything like that. And I saw his potential. And I remember trying to tell him, like, you have a future. And now he doesn't. I mean, it's not to say that his life is over, but being in jail for a murder charge is not where you want to be.
Yeah.
And the reason why I really want to expand into having more opportunities into students having more opportunities because I can't help but wonder what his life would have been like if he had been successful and he had gone away to study on a sports scholarship.
Yeah.
When you talk to people, you find out how many people have talents, could play a sport, could play an instrument, are intelligent, but because of the deck of cards that life handed them, they are not where they could be.
Right.
So when I say every child deserves the opportunity for expansive opportunities, deserves the chance for expansive opportunities, I really always think about that particular student because I wonder where he had been if he had had access to the opportunities he was more than capable of getting. Like coaches were looking out for him, and it just so happens that life literally happened. And I always wonder if he had taken that exam that March, where he would be today. And
Yeah.
it's not just him, but so many students fell by the wayside because of the pandemic, because their
Right.
parents were no longer earning as much. They had to leave school. A lot of students dropped out, never got their passes, never completed their educational journey. And I cannot emphasize that while a lot of my clients right now are people who, their parents are upper middle class, well off people, I always think about and I focus on and I really want to make sure that the future of my business allows for the opportunity for students from all walks of life.
Right. Yeah, that is a really touching story and a huge mission that you've taken upon in your business.
Yeah. The reason I say it's future is because the reality is I'm still building the foundations of my business. I don't have to tell you that in Trinidad, setting up a business, getting all the moving parts together is a journey. Up to recently, I was trying to do some work, as in this year, 2023, I was trying to do some work for registering my company. And I don't know if some people know, there was like a 2-month blackout. And these little things like that can throw you off,
The
can
ease
slow
of
you
doing
down.
business, it's very
Yes.
problematic. And
It,
I
I
think
mean,
we take for granted a lot. Like we might
mhm,
just think, oh, it's purely administrative. It's not a big deal. You can come back another day. But I don't think they really understand the opportunity loss that happens when things move too slowly.
mhm,
It's keeping
because
back our progress as a people.
it absolutely is. And I
It's
mean,
affecting people's lives.
it is. I mean, let me tell you, I think the fact that there is a whole industry that has been developed for just assist people with opening their businesses, opening bank accounts. And at first I was like, are you for real? And then I realized that maybe I really should have spent that money.
Ready to stop fighting the Instagram algorithm and start building your email list? Meet my marketing secret weapon, Flowdesk. Flowdesk is the fastest growing email marketing platform, helping small business owners design emails people love to get. From stunning email templates to immersive forms, Flowdesk makes it easy for beginners and experts alike to build their email lists, engage their audiences, and convert subscribers into customers, all without a website. Check the link in the show notes and get 50% off.
It's no like it's
No,
a
it's worth
service.
it. It's worth it because it becomes something where as visionaries and you have a big mission in front of you, right? As a business person, you start this for a strong passion and your creativity, you need to keep that protected at all costs. So it becomes an issue of your mental health. It's not just about efficiency. Like I always advise clients, hire the people. You don't need that stress. You don't need that stress. It's just it's kind of toxic. having
It,
to
it,
deal with government agencies. I'm so sorry. It
it
is what
is.
it is.
I mean, here's the thing, right? You're touching on a really important point. When we say hire the people, I'm going to tell you the people I have hired. I have, as a single woman, no children, I have a helper. I have somebody that comes every other week and helps me with the cleaning. She also helps me with the cooking. She also helps me with my hair because she could braid. She is a Renaissance woman. She could do anything. I love her. I love you, Candace. Um, no, and it's something when you say hi to people, it's not just in terms of your
And the
business, but
business, yes, I agree. I agree.
if you need help with childcare, if you need help with any kind of errand that takes away from your time and energy, especially for like solo entrepreneurs, I know there's a word I can't pronounce it. When it's all on you, it's really all on you. And
Solopreneurs.
solopreneurs, it's like, especially as Black woman, again, I speak from my experience as a Black woman. I can't speak for anybody else's. There's a lot of pressure to keep your place looking a certain way, to keep yourself looking a certain way, to keep your children looking a certain way,
Elect.
and you're not allowed to show a single crack. By the way, you're running a business, especially if you're a service-oriented business. A big part of service-oriented businesses is
It's
customer
time
service.
and time.
And yeah, and your time. You have customers reaching out at all odd hours. And, you know, I mean, of course, you have your boundaries, but, ideally, you want to dedicate your time and energy to your business. So I cannot emphasize, hire the lady, outsource the services, whatever you need to be able to get your time and energy dedicated to yourself and making sure you have time to rest. Because when my lady comes over, you know what I do? I sleep. And then when she's finished, I wake up and I say, thank you. I give her the money. And
Let me
she
take a
says,
sip
God is
for
love.
that one.
No, I mean, okay,
No, that's
so
important. That's very important.
I can have a Sunday where I spend the whole day cleaning and I take way longer than she does because for a lot of us, cleaning is an emotional task as well, You're thinking, oh my gosh, how did I let things get so bad? This, that, and the next, and you're berating yourself in your mind. The person you're
Or
hiring,
why I'm not on top of this. And
and it slows you down and you're feeling terrible about yourself. The person you hired is doing a job, they do the job, they don't,
they
it's
have
just a
no
job to
emotional attachment to it.
know. And I mean, I think there's so much shame that we carry about getting rest, about, these services are seen as a luxury, but I think you should build it into your budget. And I think you should build it into your budget.
Exactly.
Businesses outsource and have a cleaning service. If you work from home,
They are
you're home.
business expenses.
It's a
And
business
that's one
expense.
of the side note, that is one of the benefits of having a home-based business because some of the things that you benefit from in your personal life are
Mhm.
business expenses. So keep that in mind.
Yes.
But reeling
You
it
know,
back in,
mhm.
talking about being able to like grow your business and trying to get certain things administratively done, but the keep back with the ease of doing business, I want to just bring it back to every child deserving the opportunity for access to expansive opportunities, etc. I don't know if you are aware, but MOE are having edu talks. Do you know about
Mhm.
that? Right. So
I saw it, yes.
my question is, how do you think our education system should be revamped, curriculum, etc., to meet the demands of today's world and to ensure our children have access to relevant opportunities? So take that question in perspective of like what happened with the boy, the pandemic, and just in general, not just the boy, but also your earlier comment about our parents are not in a position to, or today's parents not even like in tune with what children really need today because we've been sold a dream that if you follow this path, you'll get X, Y, Z result. I know you have the
Okay. I got time today. I got time today. So again, as somebody who is, by all intents and purposes, considered a success within our local educational system, that doesn't stop me from saying that the system is in dire need of updates. But I think if there's one thing that, and this is something I get from my father, that I think all students should learn, it is critical thinking. And what do I mean by critical thinking? in an age of AI technology where things are literally not as they seem,
Yeah.
where somebody could take this video when you upload it, put it through some kind of machine and have us saying things we never said, and it will look like us and it will look like our likeness, it will tell our voices. The biggest issue that our students and children of the future are going to face is how to verify and understand what is valid information and what information can I use to make decisions.
Mm.
And that is what critical thinking is. Critical thinking is being able to assess the information in front of you and make a decision based the best of your ability, and to be able to say, okay, well, that seems like that's a little bit strange. I don't know about that. Let me hold back on this, because I mean, one of the biggest things that actually a lot of older people are dealing with right now is our scams, because they are not even aware of how
They
bad.
don't possess the critical thinking skills for to deal with something like that. Not that they don't have critical thinking skills, but they aren't prepared to be able to decipher, is this real? Is this fake? Is this a scam?
I mean, so for me, the thing, as I said, critical thinking, which is, something that my father would have always emphasized from us during time we were kids, is just making sure that you're not just running with information because you've received it. I mean, our parents would have grown up in a world where you got your news from the news station or the newspapers or the radio.
Verified sources. Yeah.
Have TikTok, we have Instagram, we have Pinterest, and nothing's wrong with these sources. There's some fabulous information on all of these platforms, because I know my hostess is on these platforms. And the other thing I would really say is important is curiosity, which is just willing to ask questions, willing to push boundaries, willing to say, oh, that doesn't make sense. Let's go into it more, because I can tell you from my education, a lot of the biggest like inventions and revelations that have come across our mankind have come from people saying, that's kind of weird. I want to figure that out.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest colonial legacies that we wrestle with to this day is we are not comfortable saying, I don't know. I have seen, and I'm sure you have, numerous times you see somebody on stage talking about something, and you could tell they don't know what they're talking about, or you could tell they don't have enough information to answer that question. And this is, I mean, and I'm not even talking about from any political angle, I'm talking about business people all over. It doesn't really matter. But what is important is that as a culture, we can't say, I don't know, I don't understand. Let me get back to you. I don't have all the information right now. And what ends up happening is that starts from primary school, from secondary school. Do you know how many adults I talk to this day, say, like, these are sometimes, of course, some of my parents will say, Miss, I can't bother with that maths thing, because you see me and maths, we don't agree. And when you find out why, it's because when they were in primary school, some teacher louded them up and embarrassed them because they didn't know how to do something, and created shame and fear around not
I have a
knowing.
serious issue with that because that seems to be very much embedded. That teaching style is very much embedded in our public school system. This way that we tend to embarrass children is unnecessary. Like, are you here to teach or are you here to bully?
And you're absolutely right. And I think it's a systemic and a structural issue that really comes down to, as I said, a culture of not being okay with saying, I don't know. Because you see it at adult levels, you see it in all manner of workplaces where the people in the workplace are saying, oh, but this person doesn't know what they're talking about. And because the people who know the issue will say they don't know what they're talking about. And also, and this is the most important thing, but I think the kids have this, is speaking truth to power. Being able to say what that person's saying is not right, even if they're in a senior position to me, even if they're authority to me, and standing up on what you know to be right and what you know to be wrong. And some of the most defining moments of my professional career have come from me saying, that's not right. And I'm not going to sign off on that. And I'm not going to put my name beside that. And if I'm instructed to do so, I'm going to write down, I was instructed to do this. And a lot of people might say, "Oh, okay, you're a troublemaker. You like to push back and this and the next." But I am telling you that I could sleep very well at night. I have a clear conscience, and I am confident that I don't have any ghosts in my professional past because I have always been able to say, regardless of who is instructing me or who is my senior or whoever is in the situation, I am not going to allow myself to be compromised, and I am going to speak truth to power. I rather protect my professional integrity and protect my personal integrity versus, you know, bending. And I think the country we have today, a lot of times people point fingers at crime and at the, gun violence and at robberies, but you have to ask yourself, how many of us in positions of power, in positions of access, in positions of the ability to do things and change things about this country have compromised on our integrity, have not fulfilled our duty to our country, to our
A
fellow
lot of things
citizens.
comes down to our integrity. A lot of things are very cultural because, going back to what you were saying earlier, we have a culture of compliance where we're afraid to speak up and ask questions for being singled out as a troublemaker or you're rocking the boat too much. And can't remember what's the other thing I was going to say, but we have a culture of compliance essentially. So we don't foster people speaking up and asking the right questions. And we need that in today's world, and we need that if, our country is going to progress.
Absolutely. And I think, one of the reasons that I also choose to work with young people is because I want to, in any little way I can, help to steer the direction of the future leaders of our country, because I think all of my students are future leaders. I think all of my students are going to be in positions of power one day, and not necessarily power in terms of being the prime minister or the president, but in terms of having the ability to affect change. And if I can influence my students to think a little bit deeper, to ask questions, to push back, to have integrity, then I think, I'm planting seeds for a little bit better of the future.
A lot of what you also said, this is what I forgot just now, resonates with me, especially as a parent, because, you see me signaling with my hands, but I don't want to interrupt the audio. It resonates because I find myself having these same conversations with my daughter, because sometimes she is asking me something, or I can't remember like what the discourse is. Either she's asking or we're discussing, and I'm like, come on, think. Critical thinking. And I'm always trying to drive home the point to her, like, critical thinking is like your tool. It's a weapon that would surpass any amount of absorbing information. We could always find information on the internet in today's age, but we can't replace critical thinking because now we have AI that could just get the information for us. But are we able to sift through, as you said, and decipher like what's okay? Something's off here. This is incorrect. But anyway, we can move on. So yeah, any closing thoughts on the topic of how we could improve the education system and the lie that we've been sold?
I think really it comes from involvement of all of us, regardless of, where we are. I think one of the most important things I think that we're not told about is that running your own business is a sustainable way forward. It may not be the easiest way forward, but I can tell you that nobody told me that I could run my own business. Nobody told me that I could be successful earning my own business. I mean, when I told everyone I was quitting my job to get into my own business, most people were like, are you
Yeah, and
crazy?
especially coming from the background that you came from, the pathway when people push education a lot isn't to start a business, it's to get a really good job.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that I think resonated with me, and I think many other people during the pandemic, is that a lot of people died. And yeah, that might seem like, okay, yes, of course people died, but there are people who had grand plans for this year we're in right now, who said, I'm going to retire in 2023. And that's when I'm going to go on a cruise around the world with with my spouse, or that's when I'm going to go visit my children living in the States. So that's when I'm going to go, you know, finally start this hobby that I've always wanted to do. And they are in the ground right now, or they're ashes right now. And this idea that we have the time, and that when we finish working, or that when we do get to a certain point in our career, is when we'll be able to do the things we really dream of, is just one of the most dangerous ideas, I think, that we have in our society. And this is not anti-career, this is not anti-job. At some point in time in the future, I'll probably go back into working full time. I mean,
I
it's
think we
not
should
as,
also normalize the fact that we can do both. We can do one full time, one part time, decide to do business full time, go back to jobs. Like, who says we have to choose?
absolutely. I mean, my goal, if I had to say I had a 5-year plan for my business, it is really to make sure that I am doing less of the day-to-day work and I'm more managing the company. Um, because, and beyond just for administrative things, sometimes I think as a small business owner, especially service-oriented business, we have our signature style, we have our way of doing things.
It's
And
true.
we're
And it's
like,
hard to step back and let go.
I mean, from a career standpoint, I can say there have been points in time where somebody senior to me gave me a chance, gave me the opportunity to make a mistake, gave me an opportunity to, you know, try something and it didn't work out. And it's really those people, I have told them, they made a huge impact on my career as I am. And I think it's something that as we become more senior in our businesses, we start to open the door and turn around and look back to the people who were where we were 5 years ago and 10 years ago, who didn't know that having a business was actually a viable way forward. So, I mean, I think if I had to really summarize all the things I said today, I think it is that it's really important that you're doing exactly what you're doing right now, just giving people a chance to tell their story, because,
Oh,
all the
yes.
attention goes to the people who are following the path and doing what you're supposed to do, when they get awards and they get recognition. And
Yes.
sometimes it can be a little bit disheartening, because when you're walking the path on your own, the reward is often peace of mind, and the reward is often feeling that sense of accomplishment and ownership over your work, which is things that go unsung. But oftentimes, when you talk to people who make more money than you and I could ever imagine, they say they feel disconnected from their work, dissatisfied from their work. They don't even know why they go to work every day. And I think just as important, just as it is
Overall,
important.
you could just sum them up as saying that they're unhappy straight up.
Yeah, like point blank. I've heard people tell me point blank, they don't like their job and they're just doing this because to fund their children's education, their lifestyle, wherever they are in their life. And none of this is bad. None of this is wrong. It's just, you have to be aware, I think. And that's why I said expansive opportunities, expansive ideas. You have to be exposed to what is out there, what you can do, because you can only dream of things if you've actually seen them happen. Sometimes you can only imagine things to yourself, especially as a young Black child, that you have to see other Black people doing, and it goes beyond representation. It goes beyond okay, you see this person on TV, or you see this person with an award, or you see this person in this position. It is understanding the steps and the mentality of how you get to that place. And I really would like to thank you, Cassia, for taking the time to interview um, service small business owners
Of
like myself,
course.
so that we can tell our story and that we can say we're here and we are doing something that is challenging, difficult. Sometimes you wake up in the morning and say, why did I decide to do this? But then, as I said at the beginning, the satisfaction of hearing my students and my parents say, wow, you really made my child more confident. You helped them to go further than they ever would have gone before. You helped them to believe in themselves. You helped them to see more for themselves than they ever envisioned. That is for me entirely and totally and completely satisfying. And I'm sure you have your parallels when people see their websites, and I'm sure you've had somebody cry
Of
after they saw their
course.
website.
Yes.
To see yourself, to have the satisfaction of knowing you've changed an individual's life, I think is for the better is something that I think almost every small business owner can speak to, and I think it's really an amazing gift to be the recipient of. So thank you so much, Cassia.
Of course, of course. So I really, really appreciate your kind words regarding like showcasing your business and telling your story because, it has been a while since I've put my clients on a platform and giving them a platform to talk about their business because every time I do a VIP day or I get to know you all, whether it's via a VIP day or that first consultation, it's always like so exciting and so amazing to hear about your stories and what's driving you and how you started your business. And I found myself, especially in 2023 this year, it's like telling you all, oh my gosh, this is such a good story. You all need to tell people about this. And that's when I was like, you know what? I'm gonna make this part of my service, where I just have you all come and just talk about it. Back in 2017, that's how long I've been doing this podcast. It would have been on Facebook Live, but I'm just changing it up a bit where you're still going to get the same essence coming out, but the delivery will be a little bit different. So you're going to get it on the podcast. It's also prepping you for doing other interviews because this is me helping you all graduate from working with me ultimately. It's like, okay, now that we've uncovered your story, not hearing your audio for some reason.
Is this better now?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Yeah, I was saying, look, my graduation story. Oh,
Yeah, because it's like, okay, you get clear on your messaging, but now you need to go and like tell this story because you all have a really important story to tell. You
absolutely.
just don't understand. So that's the backstory behind my purpose for hosting you all on my podcast.
I mean, I think that's really amazing because you focus on female entrepreneurs, and I think you know, it is really, really awesome that you're doing this, not just as a part of your service, and I think as a way to kind of give back to your clients, which I think is so important.
Yeah, I didn't
Um,
mean to say it like it's part of like the package. It's not like a part of the package, but it's just part of my
yeah,
service to you all. Yeah.
no, as I said, it's a way to give back to your clients because, as you said, you hear all these amazing stories and you're like, but I don't want it to stop with me. So I do think that's awesome. Um,
Yeah. The
yeah,
world needs to hear this. It's so good. Okay.
yeah.
So you have this amazing business. You decide that this is the thing that you want to do officially. The light bulb moment goes off. Business is going. Um, you have a really good referral system or healthy referral system from your clients, which speaks to how good you are at what you do. What made you decide that you wanted to come and elevate your business and take it to the next level?
So as I would have touched on earlier, I realized that I need to formalize my business if I wanted to, have a wider reach, and also if I wanted to, you know, get my business on that next level, as you said. I mean, sometimes in order to dream bigger, you have to create a bigger platform for yourself. I think one of the things which again I think is perfectly okay. Oftentimes small businesses kind of limit themselves into what they think is possible for their business. And I think by creating a website and formalizing my business, it allowed me to take my business a lot more seriously as well. It allowed me to say, oh, this is a separate entity that lives outside of me, that lives outside of my mind. It's a real thing. And I'm sure we could go on about this ad nauseum, especially you. But with social media changing like every day, social media, what's
Rapidly.
the landscape changes on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. So much of that is outside of our control. So I think developing a website is like developing a home for my business on the internet, which is where everybody is these days, that I can have full control and agency over. So that was really my number one thing, that at least, these days and also it's very practical and very helpful because these days when I get queries from my clients, I don't have to type out my whole spiel. I don't have to explain myself. I just send them straight to the website. I'm like, click this link and let me know when you're ready to work with me. And so it's a huge time saving thing. And I think also it really impresses my clients. I think my clients also take me more seriously because of it. And so I think, yeah, the reason I decided to do it was because I was like, you know what? I want my business to be bigger than me. And the same way that I'm doing the registration of the business and all those other background administrative tasks, having a formal landing place and a formal location for your business is also a huge step in believing in and betting on your business in a real way. So that's kind of why I decided to do it. And I
You said
think,
so many good things there. I love that betting on your business. That's something that I always tell people. You have to bet on yourself. Um, you also mentioned having like that online home, but don't you feel like a whole lot more grounded
yes,
because you have an official office space, virtual office space? Because sometimes when you have like I have WhatsApp, I have Google Forms, I have this portal here, and everything is kind of like all over the place. But your website kind of just pulls everything and makes you feel like, okay, everything's kind of organized, which
yes.
helps you to show up for your business in a better way.
And I think as well, I can tell you this, working with you was an investment. It was something that I had to spend a lot of time thinking about, and I had to be like, man, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. And the I don't know, I don't know, I don't know is not because I wasn't convinced of the absolute wonderfulness of your work, but because, saying you have to bet on your business is not just a terminology, it's
Of
like
course.
you have to reinvest in your business. And this is where, you start to scale your business, because if you just want to use your small business as a way to fund your lifestyle and work for you, there's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to grow your business, you have to reinvest in it. Because if you're not putting money back into your business, you're only really taking money out of your business. I said, and that's a really scary thing, because investing in your business means that money that you could otherwise use for your lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I say lifestyle because I don't think there's anything wrong with starting a business strictly for the purpose of making a little bit of extra money. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
Not in this
absolutely.
economy.
Yeah.
But when you start to make it your main source of income, when you start to say, this is what I'm doing, investing in your business, I think, is when and investing in your business for me is buying equipment for your business, investing in services for your business, investing in making your business formalized through administrative processes, all
Hiring.
hiring, you know, um, buying, creating merchandise for your business, you know, renting a formal space, all these things like that, because different businesses have different needs.
Yeah.
All of that is saying, I believe in the future of this business.
And that requires you to really sit and take stock of how serious you are about your dream. Or is this really something I want to pursue on this level? Yeah. It's more of an internal self-discovery rather than do I really, it's less of an external thing. Like, is this good enough? Do I believe in websites? Do I believe in branding? Do I believe in whatever service it is? It really comes back to being about your vision.
Absolutely. And I think as well, the thing about investing in your business that I think a lot of people don't really say out loud is that it is a sacrifice. And it's a sacrifice that doesn't pay off immediately. OTR, off the record, on the record, whichever the record is. Cassia and I were supposed to have launched my website in September 2022. My website was launched in June 2023. And what happened is, and I'm okay with sharing this, I had a really bad time with my personal life in late last year into early this year. And I was just not in a space or a framework to be able to do what was necessary to deliver on the project. And what ended up happening was I actually had to end up outsourcing to Cassia the copy for my website, because by the time, so much time had passed that even though I was past that specific issue I was having in my personal life, I had now created a
Wasn't in the
mental.
headspace.
I couldn't do it anymore because I was like, man, so much time has passed and this, that, and the next. And I really want to say that big up Cassia for being not just patient, not just understanding, but also for not giving up on me when I really wanted to give up on myself. And I think, if it had not been for her sticking around and her saying, Abigail, we have to get this done. We had done we were like 70 odd percent of the way. We were like, it was like one last bit of work that needed to be done. And I just could not get it done. And, I think I learned that I had to ask for help. I also learned that delayed does not mean denied, that, if life happens, which it will, in my personal case, it was as I shared earlier, I don't know if I want to say it's on the camera, but I was having a really bad time with my mental health because of other things going on. And for some people, that might be, an issue with your children might be ill, or you might be going through something with your
Personal
interpersonal
things happen. Life happens. Lives.
ones, you and your husband might be going through some stuff, your parents might be ill, all these things that can kind of derail us. And I think sometimes we are hard on ourselves because we say, oh, if it didn't happen when I wanted it to happen, then I'm a failure. And I'm telling you, the voice in the back of my head was telling me all the way through the first and second quarter of this year, you're a failure. You didn't do this thing.
Oh.
You didn't finish this thing. You're a failure. And I had to get past that. And I don't think that, and I mean, having probably at this point in time in the podcast heard all the other stuff I've done, you're like, how could this person think they're a failure? It can happen to anybody.
No, and this is the thing. Entrepreneurship will do this to you. I want to interject to say that all of these things, like feeling the worst in the world, surprisingly enough, is all part of entrepreneurship. There's this saying that if you want to fast track your self-development and growth, start a business because it will stretch you like nothing else. It will show up so much about yourself that you didn't even realize was there. And for those who are really cut out for it, it's very rewarding going through those emotions. You really do grow. And it's a beautiful experience. As
Beautiful.
ugly,
It's
ugly.
rough. It's
No,
rough.
it's rough, but I mean it's beautiful coming out on the other side. That's what I mean.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's
Because
rough. No, it is rough. You could even say it's kind of ghetto sometimes. But that's how you get to the refined, as they say, it sounds cliche, the diamond and in the rough.
Yeah. And I will say that, you don't know who you are until you are facing not being able to deliver on something for a client, or not knowing how you're going to get through this evening, or not knowing what you're going to do or how you're going to do
And
it.
it happens to all of us.
All of us.
There will be that time where you slip up and you didn't deliver to your best, and you have to learn how to first take accountability. But then after that, you have to kind of move on and let it go and give yourself grace.
Absolutely.
Okay, so rapid fire question round.
Okay.
What song is currently your vibe right now?
What song is my vibe right now? Okay, so On My Mama by Victoria Monet, because it's really a nice vibe.
Yeah.
It's groovy. I really like, and I love how she has been in the industry, doing her do for a long time, and I love that her star is rising.
Yeah, I like that song. I like it. And I discover a lot of my music via TikTok. So I didn't actually hear the full song, but it was a sound that I saved and I was like, oh, I like this vibe. So I need to get up to speed with the full song. All right, cool. What book are you currently reading?
So I'm currently reading a book called Men at Risk, which was written in the 1990s. It is a non-fiction book, and it actually talks about so far it's actually been really interesting. because it's talking about what are the effects that lead to violence and by men. And I mean, that's kind of a sad thing, but in Trinidad, we have a huge rate of femicide and violence against women. So I kind of wanted to get, um, into that. Sorry.
No, you don't have to apologize. If that is what you are reading and that is what is interesting to you, that uncovers a layer of who you are. And that's okay. If that's what
And
you're reading, that's what you're reading.
it's written by a Caribbean author, Errol Miller, and it was published in 1992. And it argues for explanations of what is the source of this, frustration and this need to be violent men. So I'm really curious because it's
You are
written to
really Caribbean through and through.
yes, yes,
I love
yes,
it.
absolutely.
What's your favorite Starbucks drink size? Are you a tall, grande, or venti?
Grande tells too little bit. Venti is gonna have me bouncing off the walls.
Thank you.
Now this
Team
PSL,
Grande over here.
and I'm having I had the cold brew with the pumpkin spice cream. It's really nice.
Mm-hmm.
I just also buy plenty from Rituals because support local, eh?
You have to come in with the support local plug. Okay.
Yes, but I go to Starbucks and I had the vanilla the pumpkin spice sweet cream cold brew
Full
and that was
form.
really yummy. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And last question, give us the tea. Tell us something most people don't know about you.
What is something most people don't know about me is that I am a yoga enthusiast and I am really into practicing yoga and I can do a split.
Oh, okay. That is different. That is new.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Um, yeah, no, yoga is what took me through the pandemic and I really enjoy that practice because it really has a lot to do with deep breathing, connecting with your body, and I really enjoy it. So yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, a lot of us found these practices, but it's like yoga, meditation, journaling. We needed something to get through that.
So,
All right, so that brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you so much for being on, and it was really, really good.
awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be your inaugural guest and I can't wait to see the final version.